Story 1. The house next door never sleeps. The first time I noticed the light in the attic window, it was 3:11 a.m. I remember the exact time because I just finished scrolling through endless social media garbage, trying to force myself back to sleep after another strange dream moan of those thick, suffocating dreams where the walls feel too close and your teeth fall out slowly like grains of wet sand. I live in a quiet cul-de-sac at the edge of town. Not a lot happens here. The biggest drama in years was when Mr. Ellery forgot to put out his garbage and raccoons tore it to shreds. So when the long-abandoned house next door finally sold after nearly a decade of rot and silence, it stirred something in all of us. Most of the neighbors peeked through their blinds with mild curiosity. I did too, but what I saw left me with something colder than curiosity unease. No moving trucks, no furniture carried in. Just a single black SUV, windows tinted so dark it reflected the cloudy sky like a mirror, slowly gliding into the cracked driveway just as the sun was going down. The grass was waist-high, yet the car didn't hesitate. The porch sagged, and the boards looked ready to snap. But someone or something walked across it without making a sound. I didn't see who, just the door opening, then closing again. Lights didn't come on. No sound, nothing. And then 3 nights later, the light. That single, unnatural white flash from the attic. It wasn't a bulb. It was far too sharp. Almost surgical. Like the sterile glow of an old operating theater. It blinked on Seno flicker, no fade just, an instant of blazing clarity in the attic's dusty glass eye, and then it vanished, swallowed by the night like it had never existed. My skin prickled. I rubbed my arms and leaned closer to the window, staring across the side yard at the old house. The windows were dark. No sign of motion. No music, no television glow, nothing that would suggest life, and yet something moved behind that attic curtain. A slow shift, like the fabric was breathing. I backed away from the window, suddenly cold. The room felt wrong, like it had grown too still, too quiet. I turned on my bedside lamp, but the light buzzed faintly and dimmed. The air tasted like dust and copper. The following nights turned into a grotesque routine. Every evening, just after sunset, I'd hear them again, the noises. Not loud, not obvious, but persistent, lingering. A faint rhythm that echoed through the thin insulation of my bedroom walls. At first, it was the dragging. A slow pull, like something heavy being moved across bare wood. Sometimes it stopped mid-drag, only to start again seconds later, as though it had noticed I was listening. Then came the footsteps. They didn't walk like normal people. They were too soft, but too deliberate. Long pauses between steps, as if something was testing its own legs. And every time I leaned toward my window to listen or look, the air would grow colder. Not a typical autumn chill, this was unnatural, like all the heat had been vacuumed from the world. The condensation on my glass would crystallize even though it was still 55 degrees outside. I wasn't the only one who noticed. My dog Rex started behaving strangely. A retriever mutt, who usually loved the backyard, now refused to cross the threshold after dark. He'd stand at the back door, whimpering low in his throat, tail tucked so tightly it curled under his belly. When I forced him out, he sprinted back after only seconds, whining to be let in, sometimes pawing at the door until he bled. Then came the visitors. It started small. A dark sedan idling quietly in front of the house around 2:30 a.m. I thought it was a lift or food delivery, but no one got out. After 10 minutes, it left. The next night, 2 more cars came. This time, they parked behind the house in the Aleno headlights. No engine noise. They seemed to glide, barely disturbing the gravel beneath their tires. I watched through the bathroom blinds as shadowed figures exited in pair stall, wearing dark coats that dragged the ground, their faces hidden under wide hats or scarves. No one knocked. No lights turned on, they just entered. I never saw them leave. The smell began after that. It crept through the vents, through the drains, through the soil between our houses. A sharp, acidic, stench-rotting hair, burnt oil, moldy meat. I tried sealing my windows. I bleached the floors. Nothing helped. Every morning the smell vanished with the light, but by 2:30 a.m. it returned. By the end of the week, I stopped sleeping. Because at 3:11 a.m., the attic light came on again. Only this time, the attic light didn't flicker this time. It simply turned on a sudden, unnatural flood of cold, sterile white that spilled through the dusty window and bathed the overgrown lawn in a pale halo. It wasn't warm like a lamp or soft like moonlight. This was the kind of light you find in old hospitals before surgery, where the walls sweat and the air smells like bleach and death. I stood behind my curtain, barely daring to breathe, my face only inches from the glass. That was when I saw them. 12 figures, lined up in the living room window, perfectly spaced, perfectly still, like mannequins or corpses posed for a family photo. They didn't move, not a twitch, just silhouettes against the pale interior glow. Tall, some hunched, one so thin its arms seemed to hang far below the waist. And yet, there was no sound, no movement. The room behind them pulsed faintly, as if the walls were breathing. I couldn't look away. One of the figures turned its head toward me slowly, with the agonizing stiffness of something unused to motion. I felt my chest tighten, a pressure building behind my eyes like something was watching through me. The curtain moved. In the attic. I swear I saw a hand, long and bony, part the fabric slightly and rest against the glass. The fingers bent the wrong way, like they were broken backward at every joint. It wasn't just unnatural, it was designed to unsettle. I stumbled back from the window and fell to the floor, my heart slamming against my ribs. For a moment, I couldn't hear anything. No wind, no night insects, not even my dogs breathing. The world had gone mute. When sound returned, it came all at once, a metallic hum, low and slow, like an old machine starting up in the basement. Then, my phone buzzed. I nearly screamed. I grabbed it with shaking hands. Camera alert. Motion detected front driveway. The footage popped up on screen. Static at first. Then the image sharpened. One of the visitors was standing directly in front of my camera. They were wearing a long, jet black coat, head slightly tilted. The camera's night vision caught their face. There were no eyes, just deep, shadowed sockets, like the skin had never grown there at all. Their mouth, wide and thin, curved into a grin that extended beyond where lips should stop. It looked sewn on. Then the footage turned black. My phone buzzed again. Camera offline, device error. I checked the camera in the morning. The lens had melted from the inside out. The plastic was warped, as if licked by fire, but nothing had burned around it. That night, I turned on every light in my house. I armed the security system. I held Rex close and tried to calm the tremors in my hands. At 3:11 a.m., all my lights flickered, then went out. My phone screen came alive, glowing faintly in the dark. No texts, just the home screen. But the wallpaper had changed. It was a photo of me, sleeping. From across the room. I didn't sleep after that. Not even a minute. I sat on the edge of my bed until sunrise, lights back on, every door locked, every window shut. I scrolled back through my phone gallery again and again, looking for that photo, the one of me sleeping. It was gone, replaced by the same wallpaper I'd always had. I told myself I imagined it. I lied. That morning, I found something on my front step, a single dead bird. Its wings splayed wide, neck snapped backward, as though it had been dropped from the sky. Its eyes were missing. That evening, the house next door seemed more alive than ever, not in a human way, nothing that breathed or blinked. No, it pulsed. I could hear it, a dull thudding, like a giant heartbeat muffled behind the walls. The ground beneath my feet vibrated slightly, the floorboards rising with a slow rhythm as though something below was breathing through the soil. Then came the voices. Not from outside, from inside, from my own vents. At first, it was just a faint murmuring, like distant static. Then it became clearer. Words. Barely audible just beneath the threshold of comprehension. My name. My name again. Over and over. Thomas, let us in. We see you watching. I unplugged everything. TV, Alexa, the baby monitor I kept for my Doge everything. And still, the whispers came. Now from the bathroom drain, from the toilet bowl, from inside the walls, scratching and whispering like something had been buried in my insulation. I left my house that night and drove for hours. I didn't care where. A gas station in the middle of nowhere felt safer than my own home. But when I returned at dawn, nothing had changed except for the smell. Thick and sweet, like rotting fruit and gasoline. It clung to my clothes, my furniture, my skin. Rex didn't greet me at the door. I searched the entire house. Upstairs, downstairs, backyard, shed, under the porch. Nothing. His leash was still hooked on the wall. His water bowl untouched. No blood. No broken window. No signs of struggle. Just gone. I called his name until my throat turned raw. I posted flyers. I drove through town, shouting out my window. But deep down I already knew. The following night, the attic window opened. It had never opened before. Not once. But now the frame hung wide, and something leaned out of the darkness. Not a figure. A shape. Its outline shimmered like it didn't quite belong to this reality distorted like heat over asphalt. It shifted and twisted and grew tall against the starless sky. And though it had no face, I knew it was watching me. Then I heard the sound that broke me. A whimper. Soft. Familiar. Rex. Coming from the attic. I stood frozen at the window, my breath caught in my throat, listening to the sound of Rex whimpering. It was unmistakable, muffled, strained like he was behind a wall or beneath the floorboards. It wasn't a recording. It couldn't be. It was alive. A real sound from a living throat. Too raw and shaking to be faked. But it came from the wrong place. From the attic next door. I ran outside in my slippers, flashlight trembling in my hand. The wind had gone still. No rustle of trees, no night insects. Just silent. The kind of silence you get in a dream false, inflated, where something terrible is about to happen but the world holds its breath, waiting. The front door of the neighbor's house stood ajar. A sliver of interior darkness greeted me. There were no footsteps inside, no voices, only the deep, constant hum, like electricity running through stone. I stepped closer, just to look, just a few feet. The air changed. It hit me like walking into a wall of moist heat, thick and clinging. It smelled of old meat, damp soil, and something chemical, like formaldehyde and melted rubber. The porch light above buzzed once, then went out. I aimed my flashlight forward and pushed the door open farther. The house moaned, not metaphorically. The walls let out a deep, sickening creak, like they were breathing through damp lungs. My foot crossed the threshold before I could stop it. The wood beneath felt soft, spongy, wet. Inside, it looked nothing like a normal house. The wallpaper peeled in long, thin strips that curled like dead skin. A strange black mold pulsed from the corners, glowing faintly like bruised veins. The floorboards sloped inward, as if the entire building had grown tired of standing. But the worst part was the walls covered in carvings, hundreds of them. Spirals, mouths, eye-like sigils that seemed to squint when my light passed over them. Some were still wet. There were no family photos, no furniture, no mirrors, only wire, thin. Copper strands dangled from the ceiling like veins pulled from meat, twitching softly, occasionally jerking as if something unseen tugged on the other end. They disappeared into the ceiling. Some of them were dripping. Then I saw the living room. 12 people, seated, perfectly still. Their skin was gray, translucent, like wax paper soaked in cold water. Their mouths hung open in silent screams, and their eyelids were stitched shut with black thread. From each scalp, one of the copper wires extended upward, vanishing into the dark ceiling like puppet strings. Their chests didn't rise. I don't know if they were dead. I don't know if they were ever alive. Then I heard Rex again. Louder this time. Desperate. Hurt. It came from above. From the attic. I took a step forward, and the figure at the end of the hall turned its head toward me. I didn't remember climbing the stairs. I must have moved forward. Upward, though, every part of my body screamed to run, to scream, to collapse, and never stand again. But somehow, my foot touched the first step, then the second. The creaking wood groaned beneath me like it resented my weight. The thing at the end of the hallway, the faceless one with the stitched grin, watched me climb. It didn't move, but its grin widened, threads splitting slightly with wet tension, as if it were smiling with its entire skull. The stairs to the attic curved sharply, rising into a narrow shaft choked with shadow. There was no door, just an open crawl space at the top, like a mouth. Rex whimpered again. Closer. That sound pushed me forward, dragging me past the line of reason. Past survival instinct. All I could think was, he's alive. He's alive. I can still save him. I reached the top, and the world changed. The attic wasn't an attic. It was a chamber. Far too big for the house, too wide. The laws of geometry folded in on themselves. The walls pulsed like lungs, soft tissue instead of plaster. The air was thick with moisture. It dripped, from beams, from flesh, from veins pulsing across the ceiling. And in the center of the room, sitting in a shallow pit of raw wood and black wire, was Rex, or what used to be Rex. His body was there, trembling, tail thumping weakly, but his eyes weren't his. They were wrong flat and black and wide, like two ink blot holes sunk into his skull. His mouth opened slowly, and a voice came out. Not a bark, not a growl, a human whisper. Thomas. I staggered back. The wires in the ceiling jerked violently, retracting into the floorboards with a wet, slapping hiss. Something enormous moved behind the far wall, so massive that the structure shivered with each step. Then it came through. Not walking, emerging, like it had been part of the house all along. A thing with many legs, glistening and bent the wrong way. A torso fused with wood. Arms like branches broken from bone. No face, but a dozen mouths, all stitched, all smiling. It looked down at me, tilted its head, and in a perfect imitation of my voice, it whispered, "You shouldn't have watched." It lunged. Everything turned to screaming static, not sound, actual white noise that pushed into my head, pounding at my skull from inside, like pressure before a storm. Then, silence. I woke in my bed. Morning light spilled through the curtains. Birds chirped. My alarm buzzed softly. It was as if nothing had happened. Except the house next door was gone. Not moved out, gone. Not burned down. Gone. Erased. No foundation, no driveway, no fence. Just a patch of yellowed grass, perfectly flat. Not even the tree remained. The street was quiet, normal. Neighbors, walking dogs, drinking coffee, waving. But I knew, I remembered. Story 2. The yellow curtains never close. The house to our left had been empty for 6 years. Its windows were boarded shut after the last tenants disappeared, just vanished one day. Cars still in the driveway, table set for dinner. Rumors ran wild for a while, but eventually, the house was swallowed by silence. The weeds took over. The paint peeled. It became part of the scenery, until the yellow curtains appeared. I noticed them on a Thursday morning, just as I was taking out the trash. The boards were gone. In their place, pale yellow curtains now framed the windows soft, old-fashioned ones, like something from a dollhouse or a nursing home. I stood there, half frozen, my trash bag dripping onto my shoes. I hadn't seen a moving truck, No realtor sign, no noise, but something was living there now. That night, I stared at those curtains through my kitchen window. They swayed slightly, though there was no breeze. No lights came on inside. No shadows passed behind them. Just a faint motion, like they were breathing. By the third night, they began opening. Always at 2:16 a.m., always only the second-floor window. It started with a slow, smooth parting. No hands, no figures, just the fabric, slowly folding to reveal darkness behind the glass. Then, without any visible cause, they would close again at 2:27. Precisely. I tried to brush it off, but then came the scratching. I heard it from my bedroom wall. Not the one near the street, the one that faced their house. The sound was faint but deliberate, like nails. Slow, calculated, scritch, pause, scritch, scritch. At 2:16 a.m. I put my ear to the wall once, only once. There was breathing on the other side. Wet, uneven. A wheeze followed by a tiny clicking sound, like teeth chattering out of sync. When I looked back out the window, the curtains were open again. But this time, something was pressed to the glass. A face. Thin, ashy, wide-eyed like a dead fish. No expressions, just watching. It didn't blink. I started recording myself while I slept, or tried to. I set up the camera on a tripod, aimed it at my bed. Left the room in total darkness, except for the faint glow from the hallway light, just enough to outline my shape under the blankets. I reviewed the footage the next morning with shaking hands. At 3:07 a.m., the sheets began to rise. Not by my hands. They peeled back like something underneath them was sliding out. Then a second figure sat up beside me. Identical to me. Same profile, same hair. It turned toward the camera and smiled slow, deliberate. Then it got up and walked away. Not out the door, into the bedroom mirror. Even though I shattered it days ago, I rushed upstairs. My bedroom mirror smashed into spiderweb crack swaths, perfectly intact again. No damage, no dust. Just my face reflected back, but not blinking when I did. I ran to the neighbor's house. I don't remember crossing the lawn. One moment I was on my porch, the next I was at their door. Fist raised to knock when I saw my own reflection in the tall mirror mounted beside their entrance. Only it wasn't mirroring me. I moved. It didn't. I turned away. It smiled. I stumbled backward as the front door creaked open. The interior beyond was all mirrors. No walls, just pane after pane, reflecting me 1,000 times over each, one slightly different. In some, I was smiling. In others, I looked sick. In one, I was rotting. I took a step inside. It felt like falling. The air turned thick and still. My breath echoed in ways it shouldn't. I wasn't hearing sound, I was hearing reflections of sound, bouncing endlessly in loops. I passed a mirror and saw myself 10 seconds ahead, already reacting to something I hadn't seen yet. Then something touched my back. I turned. Only mirrors. But one of them showed me facing myself. Both versions breathing. Both eyes locked. But only one blinked. And I wasn't the one who did. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I just sat there at the window, watching the pale face behind the yellow curtains. It never moved. Not once. The eyes were glassy and distant, like they weren't seeing me just through me, into something deeper. Their expression was empty, like a photograph held too long in water, and the skin sagged in odd places, as if it had melted and reformed into the idea of a person. At exactly 2:27 a.m., the curtains slid shut again. No hands. No movement from the figure. Just that same smooth closing, and then gone. I didn't tell anyone. Not yet. How could I? Hey, I think the house next door is alive and watching me with a corpse behind the curtain. No! Instead, I bought a camera. I set it up in the window facing their house, pointed directly at the second-floor window. Motion sensor activated. Infrared on. I programmed it to record automatically from 0 to 3:0 a.m. every night. That first night, nothing. The feed was clean, not even a curtain flicker. I sat at the computer for hours, replaying the video, frame by frame. All it caught was static hiss and the vague shimmer of heat on the glass. Second night, same, no figure, no motion, just an odd sound. At 2:16, a quiet, pulsing rhythm, wet, like someone squeezing something inside out. I cranked the audio early, blew out my headphones. Beneath the noise, I heard faint muttering. I enhanced it, loop after loop. It was just one word, repeated, spill, over and over. Spill, spill, spill. The third night, the video came back corrupted. The file wouldn't open. The timestamp was stuck at 2:16 a.m., the same minute, frozen, locked. When I tried to extract frames, all I got were streaks of yellow, distorted and too bright, like someone had smeared highlighter ink over a black background. I opened the window to check the view myself. The night was cold, unusually still. No traffic, no insects. The only sound was the slightest flutter-like fabric tugging against glass. Then I smelled it. Rotten milk and sugar, thick and cloying. A sweetness turned sour in the back of my throat. Something dripped from the edge of my roof. I pointed the flashlight up. It wasn't water. It wasn't sap. It was blood. Dark, slow, seeping down from the shingles. I ran outside with the flashlight, scanning my roof. But the moment I stepped onto the lawn, my foot hit something soft. I looked down. A bundle of yellow fabric lay on the grass. Curtains? Stained? Wrapped inside was the body of a cat, limbs contorted, eyes gouged out, its jaw twisted unnaturally wide like it had tried to scream before something reached inside and pulled. There was no collar, no way to know where it came from. But as I stood there, frozen in place, the second-story curtains across the street opened once again, and the face behind the glass was smiling now. After the cat, everything started to change. Not just the sounds, not just the windows. My house began to change. It started small, doors closing an inch off from where I left them, lights dimmer than they used to be. My phone alarm going off 2 minutes later than Settleways at 2:18 a.m. Then came the buzzing, like electricity or flies. It vibrated just beneath the floorboards in short, rhythmic bursts. Buzz, pause, buzz, buzz, almost like Morse code. I tried to ignore it. I tried to sleep with earplugs, melatonin, white noise. Nothing helped. Because beneath it all, I could still hear it, the whispering, not through the walls anymore. Inside the house? At night, I'd find water pooled on the floor, even when nothing had leaked. But it wasn't water. It was too thick, almost syrupy. And it was warm, as if it had come straight from under skin. I touched it once. My finger went numb for an hour. The next morning, I checked the camera again. This time, the file played. It was black at first. Then the static cleared for a few frames, just enough for me to see the second-floor curtains opening again, slowly, like they were being peeled apart by air. And behind the window was me. Not a figure that looked like me. Me, standing behind the glass of the neighbor's house, my same hoodie, my posture, my exact profile, staring out the window at my own home, like I was waiting for myself to look. Then it smiled. A slow, broken, crooked smile that split the skin of its cheeks. The curtains closed. I disconnected the camera. I unplugged it, smashed the SD card with a hammer, and threw the entire thing into the garbage disposal. That night, I turned off every light in the house, sat in the kitchen with a flashlight and waited. 2:10, 2:14. At 2:16, the scraping began. Not from next door, from my ceiling. It wasn't loud, but it was there, like nails being pulled along inside the drywall, just above my head. Then the sound shifted, grew heavier, closer, until it dropped into the wall directly behind, Mia dragging thump thump, like someone was crawling on elbows through the insulation. I stood up, turned to the wall and a hand pushed out from it. No drywall cracked, no seam split. The hand didn't break through it, stretched the surface, warped it like the wall was rubber, like it had skin. The fingers were long, too long. The nails bent and yellow, curled like insect limbs. It clawed once, then again, then the wall tore open with a wet ripping sound, and something with my voice hissed, "Let me back in!" I don't remember running. I woke up in my car, parked 2 streets away, doors locked, engine cold. It was dawn. My knuckles were raw. My shirt was torn. And my left hand had something written on a smear of dark ink across my palm, half faded, like it had bled into the skin overnight. I forced myself to read it, stop watching. I spent that entire day cleaning my house, scrubbing floors, repainting the wall where the hand had pressed through, though the surface was untouched by morning. No cracks, no bulge, like it had never happened, like it had healed. But I knew better. The house had let me go, not because I escaped, because it was done playing for now. That night I refused to sleep. I sealed the bedroom windows, turned off my phone, sat in the living room with every light on, flashlight in my lap, phone camera recording. 2:0 a.m. passed. 2:14. Nothing. At 2:16 exactly, my TV turned on by itself. No static this time, just an image, a live feed, of me, from behind. I turned, no one there. Turned back, the feed was still playing. I watched as my head tilted slightly on screen, my shoulders tensing. Then the version of me on the TV stood up. I did not. I sat frozen, heart pounding, mouth dry, as the thing wearing my shape walked out of frame. A second later, I heard a floorboard creak behind me in real life. I ran. I don't remember unlocking the front door or stepping outside, but suddenly I was on my porch barefoot, shirt soaked in sweat. The night was dead quiet. No wind, not even the distant buzz of power lines. But something had changed. The house next door, the one with the yellow curtain was open, the door wide, a dim amber light glowing inside, like it was inviting me. And above, in the second-story window, the curtains hung perfectly still. They didn't sway. They didn't open. But there was no glass anymore, just an open frame. And in it, the curtain began to leak. Not fabric, not water. Teeth. Tiny ones at first, like a child's, dripping down slowly, clattering against the windowsill. Then, larger ones. Canines. Molars. Dozens. Hundreds. Spilling in a slow, steady stream. All yellowed. All cracked. Some still with pieces of gums attached. They began to fall onto the porch, onto the lawn. Some into my yard. One landed near my foot with a wet, final thud. It had my initials carved into it. And when I looked up, the curtains had parted again. But the figure behind the glass wasn't me this time. It was Riley, my little sister. Dead 3 years. Staring at me with glass eyes. Mouth sewn shut. I hadn't said Riley's name out loud in 2 years. Not since the accident. Not since the icy road, the flipped car, the 3 days of machines and tubes and silence in that hospital room. She was gone. And now, she stood in the second-story window of the house next door. Still 10 years old. Still wearing her favorite green hoodie. Still with that small, crooked tooth she hadn't gotten fixed yet. Except, her mouth was sewn shut. Rough black thread crisscrossed from cheek to cheek, tugged so tight the skin around it had torn. She didn't blink, just watched me. Behind her, the yellow curtains shivered like flesh. I backed away from the porch. My legs wouldn't work properly. I stumbled down my own steps, tripped on the pavement, scraped my palms raw trying to break the fall. Still staring at her. Her eyes didn't move, but I swear she saw me. And then the lights inside the house flared bright yellow, like a furnace opening its maw. The window behind her swallowed her silhouette. Curtains parted farther, and I saw something step forward. Something not Riley. Tall, limping, wearing her hoodie, but the body inside was wrong. Elongated, boneless, like a shadow poured into cloth. It grinned with her face, thread-ripping, mouth stretching far too wide. From that gaping mouth, I heard a single word, "Come." I ran back inside, bolted the door, shut every curtain, turned on every light. It didn't help. From the moment I stepped back inside, the house began to react. The floor pulsed beneath my feet, rhythmically, like it had a heartbeat. The refrigerator began to click rapidly, like a Geiger counter maxing out. My phone rang. I picked it up without thinking. No number, no ID, just one whisper. Too familiar to forget. "You left me there." The line went dead. My hands shook. My knees wouldn't stop bouncing. I couldn't stop whispering to myself, "It's not her! It's not her! It's not her!" At 2:27, I heard my front door open, but I never heard footsteps. Then the curtains in my living room began to twitch, like someone was on the other side, gently tugging them from within the walls. My flashlight flickered. The temperature dropped instantly, my breath fogging in front of me. And then I saw it, a small, bloody handprint, pressed on the glass from the inside. Too small to be mine. I walked backward, didn't blink, because I knew if I blinked, the curtains would open. If I blinked, something else would be in the room with me. A soft hum began, high-pitched and metallic, almost like a child humming through broken teeth. Then from the hallway, I heard it. Bare feet slapping against the tile, running toward me. And from behind the curtain, the sound of staples popping. One by one, by one. The curtain tore open. Not slowly, not theatrically. No time for dread. It ripped like wet paper, shredded from within by something that didn't care if I was watching it, wanted me to see. Riley stood there again, but not her. What had once resembled my sister now wore her like a costume. Her face was slack, expression flickering between grief and hunger. Her jaw hung loose. The thread that had sealed her mouth was now split, hanging like a frayed necklace. Her eyes rolled in opposite directions. One blinked, the other oozed. She took a step forward. Her feet slapped against the floor, too wet. Behind her, the yellow curtains thrashed wildly, not from wind, but like something underneath them was trying to break through. I backed into the kitchen. The lights above flickered, then shattered, one by one. Glass snowed down onto the floor, crunching under my steps. And then the walls opened. No seams, no construction, just sudden gaping holes where drywall used to be, revealing tunnels of soft living tissue, veins pulsing, stretching, moving in slow muscular contractions, like intestines breathing. The house had inverted itself. I turned to run, but the hallway had changed, longer, twisting, and every painting, every mirror had my sister's face now. But in each one, her expression was different. Screaming, smiling, burning, rotting. The floor began to rise and fall beneath me like a lung taking shallow, urgent breaths. The hum returned louder now, like a choir of insect wings and broken toys. And from behind me, something spoke. A voice, overlapping mine and Riley's, but twisted like it had been filtered through an organ pipe full of teeth. "You watched! You listened! You opened!" The house screamed. Not sound vibration. Like every surface in my body was being shaken apart by frequencies it couldn't comprehend. My nose bled. My fingernails cracked. My vision bent sideways. I stumbled, fell to my knees. A final figure stepped from the shadows of the hallway. It wore a long yellow curtain like a robe, dragging across the floor, soaked and tattered. Beneath it, its feet were human, bare, familiar. They were mine. It lifted its face-me face, but peeled back like a rotten mask, revealing 100 blinking eyes behind it. And from its center mouth, it whispered one last thing. "There's always room for one more." I woke up in the neighbor's house. In the second-story room, the yellow curtains were drawn. Outside, I saw me, walking back into my own house. I tried to scream, but my mouth was sewn shut. I saw them move in at 11:58 p.m. No headlights, no sound. Just a long white moving truck that appeared in the neighbor's driveway, like a cutscene fade-in. I was awake by accident insomnia, again, sitting at the kitchen table, scrolling aimlessly, when I caught the motion through the window. Two people stepped out of the truck, a man and a woman, both in long coats despite the heat. They moved in a strange, synchronized way, turning at the same time, walking at the same pace. Not once did they speak to each other, but what chilled me most was what they carried into the house. Not boxes, not furniture, mirrors. Dozens of them. Some as tall as doorways, others small and square, wrapped in yellowed lace. All ornate, heavy-looking, like they'd been ripped from ancient hallways. They lined the sidewalk with them before lifting them in, one by one. No bubble wrap, no boxes, just bare glass under moonlight. I watched one of the mirrors catch a strange reflection as they passed beneath the porch light. It didn't show the man holding it, only the house, and something tall standing in the upstairs window, looking out. I blinked. Gone. The last mirror they carried was massive, at least 8 feet tall. It had no frame. The woman held one side with gloved fingers. The man held the other. They stopped at the threshold and turned in perfect unison to look toward my house. I ducked. My heart thudded in my ears. When I peeked again, they were inside. The door never closed. The next morning, the street was silent. No truck, no open door, no mirrors outside, but something felt off. I couldn't see the house the way I used to. From my kitchen window, the front facade was distorted, like the air around it bent slightly, shimmering like heat over asphalt. It made my stomach twist if I stared too long. I walked my trash out to the curb, slow and casual, like I wasn't checking for signs of life. Their windows were closed, curtains drawn tight, but I saw movement behind the fabric. Not people, shapes, thin and twitchy. That night, the mirrors came alive. I don't mean metaphorically, I mean literally. It started in my own bathroom. I was brushing my teeth when I glanced up and saw someone standing behind me. Only for a second, a blur. Tall, bent at the neck, arms long enough to brush the floor. I spun around, nothing. But when I looked back into the mirror, the reflection was still shifting, like something was just leaving the frame. I didn't sleep that night. At 2:43 a.m., I woke up with a jolt, my heart racing like I'd been running. There was no sound, only an overwhelming sense that something was watching. I got up, crossed the room, and checked the window. The neighbors' lights were off, but the mirrors were glowing. A dull, silvery white pulse leaked from their house like moonlight underwater, rhythmic and unnatural. Some mirrors were propped upright in the windows. Others leaned against walls, tilted just enough to reflect the empty street, except one of them showed my front door, and someone standing in front of it. Not knocking, just waiting. I ran to the door, no one there, but my porch light began to flicker, and for a split second, I saw a handprint pressed against the outside of the peephole glass. It was too long, fingers thin and jointed like dry branches. The palm twitched once and then vanished. I stepped back, heart pounding. Something caught my eye in the living room. My mirror had turned itself. It now faced the hallway, something I never did. I always kept it facing the wall, half for feng shui, half because it creeped me out at night. Now it showed a figure, standing at the end of the hall. But when I looked, the hallway was empty. When I looked back in the mirror, it was closer. I didn't blink. Couldn't. Because every time I looked into the mirror and then away, the figure in the reflection got closer. Not walking, not moving, just appearing. Inching forward like a slideshow of still images, closer with each glance, every shift of my eyes, every breath. It wore my silhouette. Same hoodie, same slouched posture. But the head was tilted wrong, bent too far to the side. And the face, it wasn't mine. It was smooth. Skin like wet paper. No features, no mouth. Just empty hollows where eyes should be two shadow pits that twitched slightly, like something was moving beneath them. I turned the mirror to face the wall again. Covered it with a blanket. Taped the edges down. Didn't sleep. At 3:11 a.m., my hallway light flickered on by itself. 3 soft taps echoed from my bathroom mirror. Then silence. By morning, the neighbors were in their backyard. First time I saw them in daylight, they were planting mirrors into the soil. Not flowers, not vegetables, mirrors. Tall, thin ones with rusted backs and ornate frames, like grave markers, like they were growing them. They didn't speak, just knelt together, heads tilted the exact same angle, tapping the mirror bases with little wooden hammers. Every tap made me flinch. It echoed inside my head, like the sound was coming through my skull, not through the air. I tried recording it with my phone. The screen went black. When I opened the camera roll, there was a video already saved. One I didn't take. It was of my bedroom. Dark, quiet, empty, until a figure stood up from behind the bed, slowly unfolding. Same shape as the one in the mirror, except now it had a face. Mine. Only stretched like someone had copied it wrong. The eyes were too far apart. The mouth didn't move right. And when it smiled, my bedroom mirror cracked without being touched. That night, I smashed every mirror in the house. But the reflections didn't go away. They just started appearing in the windows. And every night, they were getting closer. I covered every window in the house with newspaper and duct tape. Tore down picture frames. Pried the bathroom mirror from the wall with a crowbar. Smashed it. Swept every shard into a trash bag and took it to the curb myself. But that night, I woke to the sound of something crunching beneath my feet. Shards. Tiny glinting pieces scattered across the bedroom floor. But I had taken them out. I turned on the light. The floor was clean. But in the dark screen of my turned-off TV, I saw movement behind me. Not my reflection. Its. It was standing in the doorway, watching me. It wore a piece of my old college hoodie, the one I donated months ago. Its face flickered, cycling through fragments of my expressions. Boredom, sadness, anger, laughter, each one warped like a face remembered from a dream and rebuilt with clay. I didn't turn around. I stared into the TV screen, and it smiled, wide and confident, like it had waited for me to finally accept it. When I blinked, it was right behind me. I turned. Nothing. But the glass of my phone, black and cold still, showed a faint outline of its hand resting on my shoulder, and the fingers were already digging in. The neighbors didn't leave during the day anymore. They didn't work. They just rearranged the mirrors, turned them to face my windows, each one reflecting different parts of my house. My porch, my car, my bedroom window, a surveillance system made of glass and shadows. And then, the knocking started. At first, it was faint, random. Then it became patterned, intentional, always on glass. Sometimes it was the front door window. Sometimes the microwave display. Sometimes the oven door. Anywhere with a reflection. Once, I found a single fingerprint pressed into the inside of my water glass. I live alone. The reflection in the microwave started to show me things I wasn't doing. I'd pass by and see myself standing at the sink when I was across the room, or lying in bed, smiling in the dark, when I was holding my breath in the hallway praying for silence. They weren't glitches. They were messages, rehearsals. The thing in the reflection wasn't trying to scare me anymore. It was learning me, replacing me, practicing, and it was almost ready. I tried to leave. Really, I did. I turned, reached for the door only to find a wall of glass where it used to be. No knob, no hinges, just a smooth pane reflecting 100 panicked versions of me, each in slightly different rooms, different clothes. In one reflection, I was still asleep in bed. In another, I was bleeding. In another, I was gone. And something else stood in my place. I ran. Down mirrored corridors that reshaped behind me, stairways that reflected up but not down, doorways that led to rooms I hadn't lived in since childhood. I passed one mirror that showed my mother crying in my kitchen, another where I was digging a hole in the backyard with my bare hands. I screamed. Only the reflections screamed back. All slightly delayed, all a little off, like bad dubs in a foreign horror film. Then I found the center. A wide room, circular, walls lined from floor to ceiling with mirrors. Some foggy, some broken, some as polished as obsidian. And in the center, a tall, freestanding mirror, the first one they carried into the house. It showed me, standing in my bedroom, alive, calm, blinking. I watched myself pour coffee, sit down, open my phone, living. The door behind me in the mirror opened and the man and woman stepped in, placing a mirror behind my sleeping self. They moved like wind-up toys. One turned its head toward me in the center room, even though it shouldn't have been able to see me, and it winked. Then the mirror went dark, and all the other mirrors shattered at once, not with sound, with silence. A vacuum pop, like light being sucked from the world. When I woke up, I was in my house. Morning sun, coffee half brewed, phone buzzing, everything normal. Except the mirror in the hallway now showed me standing still when I moved, and when I blinked, he didn't. Now, I think I got out. I hope I did. But every so often, I catch my reflection watching me from the wrong angle, from a window that shouldn't reflect, from the screen of a black phone, from the back of a spoon, and sometimes, just sometimes, I see my reflection walking into the neighbor's house, alone, smiling, like he's coming home.